right. Usually it says this meeting is being recorded.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
I wish they'd stop changing things so that I knew, like, I know what to do, and then they go and change it, and
I thought it said recording in progress.
Or is it meeting?
I don't know, either way, it's being recorded,
All
so.
right, we will open the meeting at 6:06. And do we have any adjustments to the agenda?
I don't know if you guys wanted to add code enforcement, onto the agenda or not
Probably.
for,
Yeah, is that
Sure,
something
yeah.
we can discuss in the open meeting?
I just have a very brief update that I can give you guys for the time being, and I think that will be sufficient enough for.
So let's add that after this, the solar
Yep,
discussion.
That's fine.
All right. All right, any public comment? I don't think we have any right now.
We got a huge crowd of.
I know. And nobody, is anybody in Zoom? No. All right, so, solar moratorium discussion. Maria, can I explain
Yeah.
where we are on that?
Yeah, so it came to our attention that in order to do an extension of the solar moratorium, we were supposed to hold a public hearing and then extend it after the public hearing, but we never had a public hearing, so we essentially have to take a step back, do it all over again, and have a public hearing. And I think the public hearing has to follow the same rules of ordinances.
Right,
So I think it has to go in the paper too.
okay.
So if we give ourselves plenty of time, I didn't have a chance to read the thing that you had sent.
I can go over that. It was just a little history.
Does it
of
say
the moratorium.
anything about the requirements for posting a public hearing for an ordinance?
I can review that real quick. Gee, I'd have to go through that a little bit better. So what had happened, just for a little review of history? So at the town meeting in June of 2023, the town voted to approve a solar moratorium ordinance at that time. And that was for 180 days. And so then in November, did I get this right? In November of 23, at a select board meeting, that select board meeting, the regularly scheduled one, it was decided to hold a public hearing on November 30th of 2023 to extend the ordinance 120 days. And so that was done on the 30th. We also had a select board meeting right after, where it was voted to extend the ordinance 120 days. I don't know about the posting of that hearing back
I
then.
seem to remember it was posted.
It would have been 7-day notice. I just didn't know, like, if you said paper and all that.
Right, cause I know with the solar ordinance, for example, the public hearing had to be in the paper, 7 days and then again 13 days, or 13 days and then 7 days, something like that. There was some weird requirement. So I just wanna touch base to what is the requirement for the public hearing for the posting of
Okay.
the moratorium, and then once we have that, we can kind of pick a date for a
Right.
public hearing.
Right, so then at our meeting in May of this year, because we had some conflicting legal information, we didn't realize that we needed a public hearing to
Mhm.
extend the moratorium. So we're in a situation right now, and I asked James to come, just so you could be aware, we're in a situation where we actually don't have a moratorium, a legal moratorium. So, going forward, and you talked to the attorney about the situation, and he just
Yeah.
said we have to kind of redo it.
Yeah, basically. That's,
Now, did this come up through conversation or through the inquiry that came out of UGE, that guy Isaac? Is that what they're fishing around for, do you know?
I think
I think, yeah.
it was the other night when Rob,
Got it.
He mentioned that, and it kind of piqued my interest, so
Well, because the
then,
guy that Tyler's working with as well had reached out, that company reached out to me directly and asked for all this stuff on the moratorium and the specific language, and I said, that's not a planning board issue, that's a select board issue, and I
Yeah.
steered them to the town office.
Right.
and I should have done a better job when I requested, or when I asked about that for if we should add an article
Yeah,
to the meeting that we just had that would
right.
re-up the moratorium. That was sort of along the lines of my thinking. I didn't think we could just do it in perpetuity, just keep
Right.
extending it, but I thought we're doing it correctly because the lawyer had indicated that we could do it.
Right, right. And so he didn't say anything specific about a public hearing. He
Right,
just said, something about notice, which I didn't realize notice meant public hearing.
right.
and that was back in May.
And
when
that
we
was
met.
back in May
Right.
when I
Right.
touched base with him. And so when I reached out to him yesterday, he was like, no, it does need to be a public hearing. And, so essentially we have to,
So we should do that ASAP,
Right.
right?
right, so as soon as I find out what the posting requirements are, we can pick the closest date
Right,
to us.
yeah.
Say, how close would we be to having
Well, and that's
an
what I was
ordinance
thinking.
ready to go?
That's a good question.
The 5th of September was the soonest we could get together to discuss the ordinance after the hearing. So in fact, I have to send an official email to Marty and Jade to ask them to list that as a planning board meeting. I will send you an email, Marty,
Okay.
for the 5th of September. My guess is, I shouldn't say that. My hope is that meeting, we come out of that with a consensus on what we're gonna put back to the town for a vote, whether they voted up or down, again, you don't know until it happens, but that is my hope.
So you would be required to have another public hearing on that ordinance, right?
We basically have to start that whole process all over again, yep, but
So-
it's the same timing, I suspect, as
As the solar ordinance, so I
As the
mean, as the
moratorium.
moratorium. So I'm thinking if you guys have on September 5th, if you have an ordinance and you want to post for a public hearing, we can post for the moratorium and the ordinance together in the same public hearing.
and you don't have to have the language
Right.
for the ordinance when you post for the hearing, you just have to have it by the time you have the hearing.
Hearing, right,
So theoretically, you could probably post like yesterday,
right.
if we put that meeting
And
past the.
And if
5th
we
of
follow the same procedure as the solar ordinance, then I feel like we would be going above and beyond what we would be required for the solar moratorium. Because it may be only one posting, but there's two for so if we follow that same thing, then we would be following the same thing as an ordinance, which I feel like would be good. So if we wanted to pick a date, if you think that after September 5th, you would have a better idea, if we wanted to even pick a day in September for a public hearing, giving ourselves 2 weeks essentially, because it has to be in a paper for what, 13 days and then again in 7? Something like
there's
that.
guidance, every time they tell me it makes sense and then I forget.
Yeah,
Something like-
it's something similar to that. I don't think it's more than 13 days
It
though.
isn't.
So if
And that
we,
may be including the hearing and the vote, I can't remember, honestly.
right,
I have something to the paper by Monday, then it will be in the paper next Friday, and then the following Friday.
okay,
So,
That also gives time tomorrow and early next Well, you said Monday is when you put it in the paper,
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the deadline.
so it might be possible tomorrow to follow up with MMA and make sure that that timing is
Right.
correct. I can
Yeah,
look up the email I got from them and send you
Yeah,
that sheet.
yeah, and
They
I
gave
might
us the
even have-
guidance sheet,
right, and I
which
might
spells
even
out.
have a copy of that, so I can look at that too.
I have one question, if you don't mind.
yeah.
Is the hearing part of a process that ultimately, for the moratorium, leads to a town vote again, or is it just that you
No,
have to have a
just
hearing
the-
before
just-
you guys can
Just a
vote?
hearing and
Yeah.
then.
So the
we-
last time, I remember in November when I came to that hearing and it was just a discussion, I had to update on what the planning board was doing.
Yep.
Why we needed an extension, and then it was extended.
Yeah,
I think, it was extended by the select board at the meeting following the hearing.
right, right. So just to backtrack, I'm multitasking. What date are we looking at for?
Well,
I feel very confident, especially if we decide to start posting as soon as possible, as soon as Monday. That will push us out to a specific earliest possible date for the hearing, and then the vote can be 7 days after that, I think, for town
Mhm.
meeting. Which we have to have a town meeting and a vote for the
Right.
ordinance,
Right,
even if you don't for the moratorium.
right.
You could certainly hold a
but we need a
meeting
special
after
town
that.
meeting for something else too. What was the other thing that we needed?
The
to do?
liquor license.
The liquor license, yep.
But I feel very confident, particularly if the planning board is aware of that we can lock the door and not let anybody out until we approve an ordinance to move forward. I don't know that it's gonna be that hard. I can't say for sure, but I think
They pretty much had one approved.
people are pretty motivated and to get it done, and I think that we can do that.
Okay. So what date are we looking at
So-
for here?
Honestly, we can, anything after the 9th of September,
9th, okay.
And I think.
but preferably before the Monson. So the week of the 23rd, I won't be here. So there's 2 weeks in between. It would be the week of the 9th and week of the 16th
Our regular select board meeting is the 12th.
is the 12th, yeah.
If it's possible to do it then,
After.
and have a meeting after,
Okay. 10 to
would that be at 6 o'clock? We want to do that?
public hearing at 6 p.m. at the gym.
I would think.
Yeah.
Gym. For solar moratorium.
Any
Solar
ordinance as well.
ordinance.
Now meanwhile, anybody can do anything.
I was just gonna bring that up.
There was some things about in that legal packet that you had sent about retroactive
Yeah.
things. And where we're extending the moratorium, I feel like it would go from when we were extending it to still the November 5th. But I will get some clarification on
Yeah,
that.
I was just trying to look at that as well, but, yeah, moratorium ordinance will generally only apply to applications for new applications for development unless the ordinance specifically provides otherwise. It's unclear to me because we don't actually have like a permitting process right now.
Right,
Right.
but it would still require some sort of building permit, I would say. Because you're still putting a structure
Structure.
on a,
I don't know what happened the last time when Tyler did
Nothing.
that.
nothing, because
there a-
it went through Daniel, and I have an email stating from Daniel that there is 2 UGE. That there is no permitting process, so they're not required to have a permit. That's the only information I have.
James, I don't know if you can answer this. It's somewhat related, or maybe this question is better for a public hearing. I always am tentative about asking questions in a public hearing as a town official, but the whole question of capacity, and someone else asked me this, and so I guess I could say a resident asked me this as well. So if the town has, let's say, that 3 megawatt capacity from a CMP that can be generated, and if we have multiple commercial projects that are taking up that generation, is there, like, that would be up to CMP, I would expect, about what they can approve for
Yeah, I mean, I
Connection.
assume they're only gonna give out interconnection agreements up to the point that they've maxed out their capacity to essentially upload power to the grid.
right, so my question is like, for folks that wanna put a solar array on their rooftop, how does that configure into that total capacity if we have these commercial projects taking up all the capacity for generation, but then individual residents wanna
You
generate?
can have residential solar
Yeah.
that's not grid tied.
Right.
But I think that in some ways, like the stories you hear of people selling their power back to the power, like that goes away.
Right,
Because
and
you would
well,
only, it would be like, you would
Only
have power
your
for you to
generation.
use. and
Right,
I don't know how
and-
you slough off.
and that's the
extra.
question, because, well, actually, my husband and I are looking into talking to Revision Energy. And it's a solar array on your roof that you use power, but then the excess you sell to
Similar to
CMP.
what we
Right.
do with the transfer station.
Right,
Right.
right, so I don't know how that's all configured.
I don't know either, you might ask Revision, it might be worth it for someone to reach out specifically to someone who has no stake in this at all, to try to, cause I
Well,
feel like,
James,
Right.
I think you indicated to me that you've never heard the 3 megawatt thing from CMP, correct?
nope, the only people, I've heard it variously from Tyler, Lori Vanio, someone else, and Lori Vanio's guy, who is, it's the same one that's working with Rob, and I think the folks down on the North Guilford Road. Theoretically, that they have leases with them, they seem to use the number 5 megawatts, that they feel like the capacity is.
So we probably need to find out from CMP what's the real.
It also is, I think it's important to note, and again, I am not an expert, I don't know this for sure, but it's just a matter of hardware, right? Like, think about like your Comcast modem, and you pay for certain bandwidth, and if you want more bandwidth, you have to buy a better modem. My understanding is at any point, anyone that's willing to sink in the money for infrastructure improvements could change that by making improvements to our transfer station or the equipment between them and the transfer station to potentially wring more capacity out, you know? So I don't know that that capacity is a fixed
That
limit into the future,
And that
right?
CMP fixes it.
I think the expectation that CMP would do anything to increase it is probably
Pretty low, I
not
think.
right, because it's not in their financial interest to allow more capacity.
But as an example, the exhibit that UGE submitted for Tyler's project it's a big document, and I poured through it. I actually gave a copy to Glenn Poole, who has a background in that stuff and kind of knows it, and so I asked him to get a second set of eyes on it. But in there is some language about the cost to the company that Tyler's working with. And it's a big number. It's like variously, it's somewhere between $250,000 and $400,000 worth of improvements they have to make to get their power onto the grid.
Okay.
I think that's just connecting to the substation potentially, like transformers
told-
stuff.
Glenn indicated to me that it's equivalent to the hose goes in one direction and you've gotta.
Put in a
You've
check
gotta
valve,
make
go
it so it can go in
Sure.
the other direction, and that's what they have to improve.
Yeah,
So
but my
that-
point is, I don't know how much those improvements would cost.
Right.
But, you know, when someone's talking about, I heard the other night, like 30, 40, 50 acre
Right.
projects that they theoretically are interested in. If that one guy if Rob was talking about 10 million, No,
1.3.
Yeah.
as just the landowner, because you know the company that's doing the power generation is making a lot more than that on a small power array. I imagine there's a point at which the size would make it totally financially viable for them to sink several $1,000,000 into upgrades to the grid. At that point, they could open up capacity potentially. So like I said, I don't think that's a fixed number forever. It's just what we're at now with the equipment that's on
Okay.
site here in town.
Alright.
But, and then as to whether or not that impacts people selling power back for smaller arrays, I don't know. I don't know if there's a
I
difference.
wonder if
in
there's a
scale.
person out there that who, like you said, is, an objective kind of person, to give us that information.
I'm sure there is. I don't know who it is. Glenn might be someone that
Yeah.
we could talk to. I'm
Right.
sure Tyler would either know or could point us in that direction. Someone could cold call any number of solar folks and probably find that information.
Cause that would be good info in the public hearing, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it would be a bad idea, because I do think that impacts people. People seem to be more sympathetic and interested in personal, private projects versus large-scale commercial projects. And if a couple of large-scale commercial projects are all of a sudden gonna mean that no one in town can have their own private projects,
Exactly.
that I think is gonna be a problem.
Right,
And it would be kind of a bummer too.
yeah,
For sure.
okay, thank you,
Yeah,
Sorry,
I hope I
I-
didn't make it
sidetrack.
even less clear.
No, you made it more clear. Thank you. All right, so we will go ahead and post for public hearing on the 12th of September at 6.
The only thing I would say to that is that if we find out that when Elena gets some stuff clarified,
Right,
if we find out that we can't do something retroactively, or it's not, like, we should move as quickly as possible to get something in place,
mm,
because we may have already created a loophole that could lead to development that is gonna be answered by the ordinance. And so that's the only thing I would say, is that tentatively that works, but if we find out that we only have to post for 7 days and we're completely open right now, we should do something fast.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah,
the ordinance is gonna be ready and not worry about that.
that also
because-
gives us time to sort of not feel like we're just rushing it through for the sake of rushing it through.
Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I will reach out and see what the posting requirements are, because if it doesn't have to be in the newspaper, that kind of opens
And the
up.
last one, I feel like that one in November was, like, I certainly didn't see it. I saw it on the website or something.
Yeah,
And it was like a
It
half
was-
hour before
yeah, it
the
was
meeting
correct,
started. It was
right.
5:30.
we
was
went
the
out with a
hearing.
notice of the select board.
So if it can just be, and it doesn't have to be in the paper, or even if it does have to be in the paper, but only for 7 days, then we could potentially move it up 1 week and do it the first week in September.
Yeah.
Then that's a possibility. So what I'll do.
That's the only thing I would say.
So what I'll do is I'll reach out, and then if we can do it sooner, we'll say the first September 5th.
Yeah.
And then,
Unless you want to do it next week.
oh yeah, well, yeah, depending on the posting
Posting
requirements.
requirements, right?
Cause I also don't want it to be a case where people think we're trying to do something sneaky. I
Right.
think we need to be covered as a town, and right
Yeah.
now, we're not.
Right,
Right.
And I think that goes against the will of, clearly, the voters have some
Right.
concern around
Right.
solar.
Absolutely.
And to not have a moratorium in place right now is not following.
So I think regardless of the posting, I think 7 days is probably what would be required for a public hearing. So it really would limit us to be fully transparent to the first week in September.
And if you don't mind,
Yeah.
just a public comment again, if there's one thing we've learned out of this, we're looking at $300,000 for a fire truck and $40,000 for road work. $50 to send out a mailer to everyone in town seems like an awful lot of bang for buck, and then no one can complain about anything being secret ever
Except-
again.
Yeah,
And Steve did say he didn't get the
In
mail.
time or at all?
No, he
At all.
says he didn't get it at all.
Wow, where does he get his mail?
That's
I don't
what I
know.
s-
Connecticut, probably?
You'll have to talk to Molly about that.
Well, I mean, I guess I was actually thinking about that. I personally have a post office box outside of where I live because first of all, Quebec doesn't have a post office. And so I get my mail in Granville, but I also have a mailbox at the end of my driveway that if I needed to get something like that, I could still get it. So there's ways around that. And you can't please everybody.
No,
No,
I personally sometimes go 4 or 5 days between.
I was just gonna
checking my
say.
Post office box, could have been something as silly as simple as that. It's-
Yeah.
I mean, he was here.
we
or he might
tried.
have thrown it, like a lot of people just throw what they think is junk out.
Yeah.
At the post office,
I
yeah.
actually saw stuff with his name.
Oh, well, we tried.
But I think at that point though, that's not our problem.
Right.
That's a postal service problem, and that isn't gonna hold much water when it comes to accusations that
Not really
anything
just
underhanded
this
is being
yeah.
attempted, so.
code enforcement, but I can take that.
I am gonna send you guys all this, one sheet for an ordinance and ordinance enactment and amendment. It has all the posting information.
Oh, okay.
It's
Yes,
from MMA. They have like a little breakdown.
awesome.
Let me know if you have, it's not super straightforward.
Okay,
So if you have any
That's okay.
questions, reach out. I'm happy to share.
yeah, thanks.
It's unfortunate that, oh, I like your doodles.
That training was just so intriguing.
It's unfortunate that we were misinformed because there was no intention to do.
Right,
No,
right.
To do
No, for
this
sure.
less than correctly,
Right.
so
But, I'm
I'm
and
glad you,
conscientious and vigilant about doing the right thing, keeping us out of a lawsuit.
absolutely, no, and that's what I'm worried about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Cool.
so do we, I guess we can't, I was gonna ask for setting the date for a public hearing. We need to vote on that, but we can't yet until we know what the posting
right,
is, so.
I would say when you get an answer to the posting, post it to have it in the shortest.
did you
amount
just
of
send
time.
that to me?
Just a second.
Okay.
But it's not, I don't know that it's the same as, for approving a moratorium as it is for enacting an
Well, the
ordinance.
last time the hearing was the same day as,
The vote.
Right, because it
or
doesn't
are
have
we
to be,
having to start over and have a completely
No.
public vote?
we don't have to.
Okay.
Well, that's
Then,
good to know.
then
Right.
I would say do it in the shortest amount of time allowed and more, the ordinance, sorry, I keep flipping those words, the ordinance progress notwithstanding, like,
Yeah, don't worry about us. You move, I think you're right, that the hope is that the ordinance we can knock it out in a single meeting and it'll go to the town and get approved, but that could not happen. And so the moratorium, if the
like I think
intention is,
we should do another 180 days.
and it sounded like coming out of that meeting, while I heard some people that seemed opposed to the idea of a moratorium extension, I also heard a number of folks that seemed very.
They wanna see something.
Supportive of it. They wanna see nothing until there's a rule in
Yeah.
place, an ordinance in place. And so I think it's reasonable to move forward with that.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
I'm just Googling on the MMA site, notice for moratorium. That didn't help. It says, Just as notice.
Special notice and hearing requirements in general, and it-
Oh, I got it right here, it's in this thing I sent you. Where is this?
notice must be posted in the municipal office at least 13 days before the hearing.
13 days, because it's an ordinance.
The hearing must also be published in the newspaper twice, at least once 12 days before the hearing and once 7 days before the hearing. So, yeah, so that's September, whatever, we
Mhm.
said
12,
12th. So then,
must be that. So what was it, 7 days in the paper, or?
12 days and then 7 days. So if we get something in the paper by, Monday, then that's fine.
Okay.
Well, it'll work perfect.
Although it won't be published, like Marty said, until Friday.
Right, and then it will be Friday, and then Friday, and then that Thursday.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So,
Well, technically, I get the paper on Thursday.
yeah,
So
I thought it was a Thursday, that, like the Eastern
I get it,
Gazette.
yeah, the Eastern Gazette, I get in my post office box on Thursday. I
Yeah.
get it in my mailbox on Friday.
I think it, the only thing that matters is the day that it's published.
Right,
Because if you live somewhere that it takes 3 extra days to get it to you,
Right.
we can't base anything on.
right.
that.
So
I think
I'm pretty sure that it's Thursday that it's published, so that should be fine.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
all right, so we can go ahead and
The
vote.
extension of a moratorium ordinance, which was originally adopted by the town pursuant blah, blah, blah. So there's a moratorium ordinance information packet on MMA. Is that,
That's the
that's
one
what
that-
you sent me?
Yeah.
So that must be also in there. So let me see if I can scan that real quick to see if there's.
The select board has the authority to extend the moratorium in compliance with statutory
After notice and hearing
after notice and hearing.
of 38, so what is that?
Yeah, 30 AMRS. Moratorium.
It still does not tell me how many. I'm gonna say that same notice and hearing applies here because it keeps bringing me back to. But you would think,
The law doesn't
it
say,
doesn't say, it just says after notice and hearing.
right,
It's possible, it's like ours too, which they, like MMA for planning board notices. They tell us there's best practice, but there's also the law, the
It doesn't
language of the
say.
law is somewhat arbitrary.
Right,
And it's like a reasonable amount of time before the meeting, which they say best practice is 5
right,
business days, but it isn't clear that it's like any number, you know, arguably it could be the day before. And I think they even followed that up by saying if you've always done it a certain way, that's considered precedent or whatever.
Call to the attorney in the morning?
Yes, and I'm gonna ask them how we, backdate it to when it should.
Or
have.
how we're, in the meantime, how we're protected.
Yeah.
Kind
I mean, we're not.
of, which maybe
I know.
we're not.
You know, in the 3 weeks, max that we have to wait. Hopefully, you know. I don't know.
The solar universe doesn't strike me as being one that moves with lightning speed.
I think there, but I think there is a
But if you
project.
just put a few posts in the ground and
Yeah, then,
If there is a project that could move, I think, so.
so, yes, I will relay that information along when I have it.
Perfect.
All right, and then, again, get back to my question. We have to vote to set the date for a public hearing, so if we can't do that tonight, and you find out tomorrow,
You vote to allow the town manager the discretion to pick the time for a meeting? I don't know.
that's a good question.
Let's do that. Let's pick two
Or-
tentative dates.
Right,
And then,
or could you vote for the earliest one and then if something falls through, we just have another special
Exactly.
meeting and
yeah, because really it's between the 5th and the 12th. So if you,
Can we just authorize both?
yeah,
And then don't follow through on the one that doesn't work?
so I'll make a motion, to hold a public hearing, for consideration of extending the solar moratorium on Thursday, September 5th at 6 o'clock. And if we need more required notice, Thursday, September 12th at 6 o'clock.
Second time.
All right, any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous, okay. Yeah.
we gotta throw the liquor license in on that.
well, it doesn't have to have a public hearing because we already,
No, it does, cause we didn't write it up correctly.
then yes.
Cause we gotta have, remember, we had to have the statute written out.
Which I think we did have the statute written out right on the public hearing, but not
At the meeting.
at. Yeah, it was, but we can redo it if,
Just.
Cover our butts, 'cause I don't wanna be that town that takes 2 years to get a liquor license.
why not?
Aaron wants to be able to get his liquor.
I
and
want my booze.
Oh, boys. Okay, well, I'll just re-listen to the recording tomorrow and make notes.
I'm taking this too, but I missed the whole, sorry.
It's okay.
All right. All right, we good on solar?
I think so.
James, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
I just
we
wanted to make
appreciate
sure you were in the loop on this and the planning board.
And I will give them a heads up at our meeting on the 5th, which might be the same night as your meeting,
Yeah,
your hearing, which is fine.
yeah,
Let me know if you wanna. I think ours is set for either 5 or 5:30.
okay, so 6 is the hearing here?
You got half an hour to come up with a decision.
Well, we can move across the street if we need to, where we met all winter.
Oh, okay,
And if people wanna show up,
just
which
as
they
long as
may,
people know, right?
yeah.
Right, and if
that-
we're here, we can always.
We
send
haven't
them.
posted that meeting yet, so that's fine, we'll just post it across the street, I'll
Okay.
double check with Chantal, but I just can't imagine we won't be able to do it there. Reminds me, I gotta do that.
All these little tidbits of the to-dos just keep, like,
I
I was,
liked it better when all the people, the generation ahead of me were taking care of all this stuff. It was a lot
know.
easier.
Yeah.
Hey, on a side note that has nothing to do with this meeting, Dad is coming up tonight to put stuff in his truck, so
It's good to know that that's now
recorded.
on the record.
So I'm
For
supposed
all
to call when this
history to
meeting
know.
gets over. And
And me to
he's
your
gonna
house.
drive up, yeah.
We're taking the kids on a little canoe trip, so,
Oh, nice.
down the West Outlet. Indian Park. Woo-hoo.
Ooh.
Raging class 1 river. We'll see you guys later.
Thanks again,
Bye.
James.
Yep, no, anytime, you can call
So, CEO,
Okay, so, I guess the only update that I really can kind of give you guys is that, number one, Kent passed his, shoreline zoning test, so he can at least patrol in the shoreline zoning area now legally, which is one concerned piece of property, it falls in shoreline zone.
Okay.
That particular project that is of concern, he has only sent one certified letter, so he came in today. He said that Jessica is responding to him, which is great because she's not responding to me, but that's okay as long as she's responding to one of us and our questions are getting answered. So she has been in contact with him, and now that he's licensed and everything, he can send that second certified letter. And then after that, like Erin had said, after that second certified letter, then we can move forward with the fines and all of that kind of stuff.
Did she indicate to him, like he's communicated with her about the recent updates to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, so like, he told me that he touched base, was able to, she emailed him, so maybe that's her preferred way of contact, and I've been trying to call her just because I have a much easier way of communicating when I can talk to you, because I can't always relay what my thought process is in an email, and it's very hard to read somebody's tone in an email, so I always like to talk to them, but some people prefer email, and maybe that's why, and maybe she hasn't even got my voicemails, I don't know, maybe she's
that is weird.
working from out of the office on emails specifically and then not, I don't know, but Kent has touched base with her
Do
and
you know, DEP sent notice of their decision on that case
I-
to the landowner or just to Kent?
I don't know.
Okay.
And
I
they,
can't-
they told him
Yeah.
basically that it's our jurisdiction and we need to do something about it, they're not gonna do anything,
Right.
which is unfortunate because
Surprised me, I thought DEP would.
like trumped us, that's what I
Yeah,
thought too,
yeah.
but they're like, oh no, you guys are, this is your jurisdiction, you guys have to. It's almost like they're telling us what to do versus telling the landowner what
I
to do.
know. So Ken has to send a second certified letter,
Yes,
and then.
basically saying that, if he doesn't comply or whatever, then it goes to the select board, in which then fines can be applied.
And it's 10 days, I believe, is what Brian and I,
I was gonna say, after the second certified letter, what's the timeline?
10 days from the first, you send the first letter out that says you were in violation of this, you must fix it. 10 days after that, you send another letter out saying you are still in violation of this, you have 10 days to remedy this, or it goes to the select board for the possibility of fines imposed. And then once the select board gets it, our attorney writes them a letter, says you have 10 days to rectify this matter, or we're gonna fine you up to $2,500 a day.
So after that second letter and the 10 days pass, nothing's done, we contact our attorney.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, gotcha.
Have him draw up the letter. I think it was between 100 and 2,500 is what
I
he
thought it was
proposed.
1,500, but it doesn't, but it might have been 25. Can't remember.
Actually, I was
We
looking,
have it in there.
we have a policy on that. And it's kind of up here. Where was it? It's not that one. I can find it later, I guess.
And I think there's been a lot of violations in the past that should have gotten to that point, but they never did because people just didn't want to deal with any hate and discontent.
Right.
But one thing I don't get is the one down by the beach. The DEP got involved in that and they were gonna serve him papers.
Yeah, that's what I was.
But now all of a sudden, they want nothing to do with it.
But DEP said he had to remove everything, correct?
Right.
So who, like,
Who enforces that?
what's
So it must be-
interesting,
they
they make a
must-
decision, but
It's almost like, and maybe it's that we have to do everything we can first before the DEP steps in. Maybe that's what it
Maybe
is.
that's what it is, yeah. Yeah.
the guy by the beach though is in Australia, correct? Like, so nobody can.
He's up all the time. I mean, if they come to Summerfest, he's here.
Oh, okay.
You just gotta pick the right date to come.
A fine of no less than $160 for each of the first and second violations shall be imposed. Minimum penalty for any subsequent shall be $530 for each offense. Each offense is defined as violation occurring again, or the violator is notified by a municipal official that the violation has not been corrected. Town manager will keep record of all violations.
Hmm.
And then it goes on. Safety. Yeah, it has more information. after that. Okay, so, you said Kent just sent that second letter?
He said that he was going to send it today.
Okay,
Does he gives you copies?
So the first copy of the letter, I guess, was in the stack of stuff that he had given to the select board at the last meeting.
Okay.
Which I have
recall
that.
seeing
I didn't recall seeing it either, but I do have that folder.
Was it a certified letter or an email? Because when I asked him at that meeting, I said, have you been sending out the letters?
All I saw.
I have sent out 3 letters and he said, I send out emails. So I don't believe you can do an email.
Well, he told me that he had, it wasn't. Like he paid. It is a letter because he paid for something so that he has a receipt. That he got it. But it wasn't the certified letter, it was like, almost like a package. Like he paid more than what he really even needed to, because certified letter is really what we need, but he got some, I haven't seen the receipt, I asked him about it today, but he did say that he got a receipt, that
okay.
proves that he got it.
It would just
And
be,
you might need to send a picture too with that letter. Of what the violation
What it
is.
is, yeah, and like explaining what the violation is.
it would just be important that we know that Kent has all the documentation needed.
Well, and there is. In that folder, there is some pictures and. Of the retaining wall anyways.
Yeah.
Anything else? I don't know if there's a lot of pictures, but there was pictures of the retaining wall, that much I do know, cause I do remember seeing those, but I didn't spend a whole lot of time. Going through that folder to see what information was there, other than to get Jessica's information.
That was just, he gave us one copy of that.
Yeah.
Right, I
Yeah.
don't have a.
No,
copy
you
of
don't.
that. Okay. I was thinking that I did.
If I can find it very quickly, I'll just bring it up. Okay, so here are pictures.
No, I remember, he had all the contacts, all his correspondence.
Yeah,
And was there a reason he went to the DEP first rather than the select board, or just didn't know?
probably just didn't.
Because most of us think it's DEP
Okay,
jurisdiction. I'm sure.
so March 15th, 2024 was when he sent his letter to Mr. Brown.
Okay.
So he did send one?
Yeah.
Now, does when he passes shoreline zoning test, that date affect any of this?
I don't think so. So there is a copy of the letter that he sent me here. I haven't read through all of these emails, but I will do that. Just to bring myself up.
If I remember right, there was somebody at DEP contacted initially, and then that person left and never got back, and then there was another person, and
Yeah,
there were like 3 contacts there.
there
and he went
is,
through.
yeah.
2 people left, right?
Yeah.
That's the third person.
Yeah. So I think that was the reason for things going.
See, this person said, I'll add this to my list of enforcements and get out there as soon as I can.
Right,
To me, that sounds like they're gonna do something about it.
I think they came.
That's right,
Yeah.
that's right, they did.
And then I thought there was something in there that indicated that it must be removed.
Yeah,
And-
from DEP.
Say, cause that one's been in the news down Naples. Is that what it was, that big one that the guy cleared out the whole front of his place? I guess it was in the newspaper and on the news, and yeah, DEP did fine him for that one.
Yeah, so June 29th was when, of 23. Is when they said that they'd get out as soon as they can, and then.
Sebago Lake.
So they-
Oh, yeah, I did read something about that.
Aaron, are you able to reach that cup again? I totally forgot I left it there. No, I've never seen it.
Okay, so the municipality will need to issue the notice of violation for anything not compliant with their local ordinance. Well, it's not just our local ordinance, it's the whole state.
Mhm.
Right,
What date was that?
March of this year.
Okay. So
So it looks like they said, okay, the town needs to enforce it, and so he sent a letter. And then. That was pretty much the extent of that.
okay. When he emailed me yesterday, that I forwarded that information to you, Elena.
Yeah.
It just kind of, in my mind, I had a question like, so. Am I being correct in steering him to town manager rather than coming to directly to select board with issues, or updates like that? Because you would relay
Yeah,
any of that to us. I just didn't want there to be
Right,
you know,
Yeah, we already have enough trouble.
yeah,
Yeah,
leave
no.
you out of the
Right.
loop on this, and it just seemed like CEO and should be coming
Yeah.
through town manager.
yeah, for sure,
Okay.
and then I bring it to you guys.
Lines of
And-
communication,
And
yeah.
then then we're all kind of involved, and then
Right.
if I want to invite him to the select board meeting so that we can all have a conversation, then that's.
Right,
So in here, he highlighted fines, any person who continues to violate any provisions of this ordinance after receiving notice of such violation shall be liable for such civil penalty of a minimum of $100 and $120 and then $2,500 for each violation. Each day the violation continues to constitute a separate violation. So,
does that have to go by our,
Did you find anything that said that, like DEP, I thought had made the decision that everything had to be removed?
oh yeah, they did say that,
Okay,
I
thought I had read that.
but it's up to the town to have them
Right,
do
okay,
it. So,
right.
it said,
oh, public safety?
This is why towns don't enforce shoreline zoning.
because it's so expensive to do it.
And
Well, and that's what that one down in Raymond was. It's been like 2 years and they're just in the mediation process of trying to get, you know, the guy that committed to pay X amount, which is gonna pay for the fines, the restoration, and all of the town's expenses. So
Yeah.
it doesn't even get really, well, they're hoping it doesn't get brought to court. They
Right.
think they're gonna be able to come up with a solution.
Right. So this particular email was from March, and she said Dawn provided the email below in regards to her visit a few years ago. When she was on site, the only violation was tree removal. So as the retaining wall and possibly the gazebo was not on site when she visited.
The gazebo was.
I thought the gazebo was been there
Gazebo's
since
it
been
was-
there.
Yeah,
or something.
like Nate
Yeah.
Durant said, the retaining wall is not allowed under an RPA or shoreline zoning, so the violation needs to be addressed and the gazebo needs to be moved back to setback. So the municipality will need to issue the notice of violation for anything not compliant with their local ordinance. So that's when he sent his letter.
He's also. I
So.
think along with his second letter for those seawall, he's gonna send out his first letter for the new beach that's going in.
Yeah.
Cause it'll be separate.
Yeah,
Oh, my.
have you seen it?
I haven't been over to see
Okay.
it, but
I haven't seen it. It's funny because DEP told us we can't like pull the dirt out of the lake, right?
The beach.
So they, I guess it's only enforceable because we follow it if we get.
Right, really though.
Like,
So I guess I'm
I guess
just
we can
gonna
find
go get an
ourselves.
excavator and start digging my sand back out of the lake.
but, all right.
just have a little party, invite every town kid around, give them a bucket
Bucket
and
and a
say, let's
shovel."
build some sand castles.
Yep,
Cookie, every bucket is saying.
hold it as close to the road as you can get it.
Oh, goodness. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
so that's
thanks.
where we're at with that for now.
All right, thanks for that
Sure thing.
update and all. All right, I will make a motion to go into executive session for one MRSA 504056 personnel matters. We have a second,
Seconded.
any discussion? All in favor?